I'm going to get on to my top three for the Seahawks coaching position as we are today, because I kind of feel like we're getting into the home stretch here, that maybe this time next week we might even know who the Seahawks head coach is going to be, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that as well. But first, can we please stop using the C word? Not that C word, I'm talking about culture. I've read so many articles, listened to so many opinions on the radio and on YouTube with people saying, do you know what, Dan Quinn's the front runner, or Dan Quinn's the ideal fit, because one of the things that John Schneider said in his press conference was they want to carry on the feel-good vibe that was around the place when Pete Carroll was there. Stop. If that was so important to the Seahawks, Pete Carroll would still be the head coach. There's a difference between having to have somebody who can specifically make it exactly how it was under Carroll behind the scenes, and having essentially Matt Patricia or Josh McDaniels or somebody like that who's going to go in and just be a horrible person and make everybody's days miserable and completely sap the life out of the franchise. That's how I interpreted Schneider's comments. It doesn't mean that you need someone who has worked with Carroll or is going to get up out of bed every day bouncing off the walls. It just means somebody who can go into that facility and can engage with his players and get buy-in and get them competing in a way that they need to. That doesn't need to be somebody like Carroll. It doesn't need to be Dan Quinn just because he was here for a couple of years as the defensive coordinator 10 years ago. There are plenty of candidates out there who can go through this process and they can create a real good feeling around that facility. It does not need to be Dan Quinn. So I just want to get that out of the way. Second thing is, somebody sent me an article yesterday in the comment section of SeahawksDraftBlog.com, which I found really interesting. It was a ranking of all the coaching hires from the 2017 cycle. In case you are not up to date with what happened in the 2017 coaching cycle, that was the year that Sean McVay was appointed by the Rams, and it's the year that Kyle Shanahan was appointed by the 49ers. Now, the number one ranking, according to Greg Rosenthal, who's a good writer, who's a good opinionator, the number one person that he had at the top of his rankings was the LA Chargers hiring Anthony Lynn. And the reason he put them at number one in his article was that he said that he could set a culture, that he was going to build a fantastic staff. And that was the most important thing, that it wasn't a coordinator who was going to come in and work on one specific aspect of the team, that he was an overseer and that he would get a great staff and everybody would buy in and be very positive about that. Anthony Lynn lasted 5 minutes in the Chargers and then he got fired. That did not work. Sean McVay was ranked second, with all of the caveats of, do you know what? He sounds good at the podium and he's been able to get Wade Phillips, and that's the main reason why he's ranked second, because he's been able to get Wade Phillips. But he's young, he's only 30, is he going to be able to do this? It's a risk, it's a gamble, but he's got Wade Phillips and he sounded good at his press conference, so we'll put him second. I can't even remember who was third. I can't even remember. But Kyle Shanahan was fourth. And this was Kyle Shanahan, who was about to take Atlanta to within a few inches of winning a Super Bowl, and had got Matt Ryan the MVP. But he's had some difficult times in his course. He's worked in Atlanta, but how much was that was down to him. He's had some difficult spots before. And I suppose the lesson that I would learn from this is, I think a lot of people, and I touched on it in a video with Dan Vines yesterday, and look, my opinion's going back and forth a little bit on this. But there are a lot of people out there saying, don't focus on coordinators, don't focus on people who've done a really good job on one side of the ball. You need a leader. You need someone who can stand up in the room and everyone's like, yeah, that's a man. And he can get everybody going out there and competing in training camp and then on the field. There are plenty of examples where that hasn't worked. And Anthony Lynn was a good example of that. And he was ranked ahead of McVay and Shanahan. Now, if you were going to redo those rankings, it'd be a no-brainer. McVay would be number one and Shanahan number two in that order, because McVay's won a Super Bowl. So maybe there's a lesson to be learned there. And here's the thing. You could also point right now and go, yes, but, look at the current playoffs. Dan Campbell's an overseer. He's doing a great job. A quick reminder, because Anthony Lynn's linked to this as well. When Dan Campbell had Anthony Lynn as his offensive coordinator, what was the record? I think they had 0 wins or something similar to that. And they had the 29th offense, and then he got quickly fired after a few weeks, like midway through his first season or 10 games into his first season, something like that. And then since Ben Johnson came in, they've had a top 5 offense. So what is really driving the Detroit Lions? It ain't the defense. Dan Campbell and his engaging personality and his leadership is absolutely having a big impact. But do not underestimate, and so many people are. I'm also tired of people saying things like, oh, people who want Ben Johnson are internet people. No. People just understand when they watch the Detroit Lions how good they are on offense, how the most is being used out of their running backs who had 24 total touchdowns between them this year. It'd be nice if the Seahawks could have their 2 expensive running backs, 2 second-round picks spent on them, to have that kind of production. He's made Amon St. Brown the 3rd most productive receiver in the NFL behind only Tyreek Hill and CeeDee Lamb. He's got Sam Laporta scoring 10 touchdowns, more than any other tight end this year, and he's up there with George Kittle numbers and Travis Kelce numbers this season already as a rookie. And yes, he's got a fantastic offensive line. Build a fantastic offensive line in Seattle. Go and invest resources into the offensive line and try to recreate that. It's not impossible. The Lions, one of their tackles is the 16th overall pick. You have the 16th overall pick this year in a great offensive tackle draft, if you want to go in that direction. You've already invested in Charles Cross and Abe Lucas. They've got a free agent guard who is a free agent this year. They have a 3rd-round guard who is a free agent this year. And they spent a top 25 pick on a center. So invest in the center position. You can steal their guards off them if you want to. It's not beyond the realms of possibility that you can set up a good offensive line in Seattle. Just saying. So, when you're looking at things like, okay, it's got to be somebody who can lead. It's got to be somebody who's going to set culture, not on specifically to any side of the ball. You can't just go for the trendy coordinator. Well, you kind of can, because a lot of those guys are having success. And this is going to heavily impact what I say for my top 3 list. I've seen a lot of people doing this. I've narrowed it down to 3. I think these are the 3 candidates that I would be most focused on. And I've only gone with the guys who've either been heavily linked, such as Vrabel, or they've requested interviews with. So I've not put Mike McDonald in this contention because as of today, they have not put a request in for him. That might happen next week. We'll see. But this is my list of 3. Ben Johnson, number 1. I think he could come in and you say to Ben Johnson, right, we're going to try and build up your offensive line. You've had success with Jared Goff. We've got Geno Smith. Similar. We want you to turn DK Metcalf, Jackson Smith-Njigba, and Tyler Lockett into a 3-headed monster at receiver. You've done a great job doing something like that in Detroit. We want production out of our running backs. And we're going to either get Noah Fant back or we're going to go and get somebody else who can play tight end at a decent level. And we want production out of them. We want a top 5 offense. We want our identity to be through these weapons that we've already invested in. We've made that investment. It's not about building a new team and investing in those pieces. You've already done it. That's the identity of the team right now. So get somebody in who can make the most of those pieces. That is what I want to see. That is why Ben Johnson is at the top of my list. I think he speaks very well. I think he has got the intelligence and the personality because I've watched a whole bunch of press conferences with him. I've listened to what a lot of people have said about it. I've studied everything. I've done a 3,500 word article on Ben Johnson, crying out loud. I feel like I've studied as much as I possibly can about this guy. This is not just, who's at the top of the list of CBS's top coordinators. Him, right, we'll go with him. This is a lot of thoughts gone into this, and Ben Johnson is number 1. Now, I'd be tempted to stop there and just say, go and get Ben Johnson. Make him the guy. However, all of the talk, as I've mentioned a lot, as most people have mentioned now, is that Washington and the Washington Commanders are almost certainly going to go and hire him. That he's got a relationship with Adam Peters. Mike Garofalo's been saying that on KJR. They were talking about hooking up when Peters got a job and being a partnership. There's been further talk from Ian Rappaport about he wants to go somewhere and build everything, start off with a new quarterback. They've got the 2nd overall pick in Washington. You can pick either Drake May or Jaden Daniels. And you start off from fresh. You set everything up and you go away from there. So there's been a bit of talk that Johnson wants that. And if that's going to be the case, he's going to end up at the Washington Commanders. I mean, that is odds on right now. Everybody who is a league insider is saying the same thing. And it feels like it's trending that way. So if you cannot convince Johnson to come to Seattle, who's 2 and 3 on my list? Number 2 is Bobby Slowick. The more that I've sort of studied him, seen what he's done, Kyle Shanahan said he's one of the most impressive people he's ever worked with. He's hailed DeMeco Ryans' decision for taking him to Houston with him. He's done an amazing job with CJ Stroud. People are now going, anybody would do well with CJ Stroud. Completely forgetting that a year ago, what were people saying about CJ Stroud? Oh, you can't focus on the Georgia game. Oh, he's got flaws. He's got this. He's got that. He's not good. He's no good. Oh, he didn't pass that intelligence test or whatever. Bryce Young's number 1 QB. He's the best. Is CJ Stroud going to fall out the top 10? That was a chat about that the week before the draft. There was all sorts of nonsense being talked about. I mean, some websites had CJ Stroud as QB1 from the end of the college football season right through to the draft. Others did not. Most of the national people had Bryce Young as QB1. Others had him as QB4, but whatever. It's not, the point I'm making is it was never assumed that CJ Stroud was just going to come into the league and be amazing. I personally thought he needed a year to learn what a pro-style offense was going to be like. He hasn't needed that. He's been beautifully guided by Bobby Slowick. The system works perfectly for him. The scheming, what they did against the Cleveland Browns and Jim Schwartz, his number 2 DVOA defense that always beats Kyle Shanahan, he tore it to shreds with clever deception, with misdirection, the flow of the offense going one way, coming back to the other way because he's got a running back or a tight end pulling it out into wide open areas. That's the modern game. There are certain things about the game that will always stand the test of time, like being great in the trenches. And for me, the 2 main priorities for building any team: invest in your trenches, be great in your trenches, get a quarterback. You know what number 3 is? Be good at deception and misdirection on offense. Be innovative. Find ways to keep teams guessing, because that is how the league has yinged while everybody else has yanged. Because there are still teams out there, Seattle under Carroll being one, who are just going to go out and be what they are. This is who we are. We put the install in training camp or whatever, and that's who we are. And they tweak a little bit here and there, but it's nothing major. And then you have these other teams who go, this is what we are, and we're going to master this play for 17 games in the regular season. And the other team's going to know that we do this play really well. But you know what? We are going to play off that fact that we're successful at this play, and they see it coming every single time to set something else up. Deception. We are going to use misdirection properly. You have to in the modern NFL. It is the way that you scheme guys wide open. It is the way that McVay and Shanahan and others have dominated on offense. You've got to be able to do that. Bobby Slowick has shown that he can do that. He is an old head on young shoulders. When you listen to him speak, I think he's ready. I don't think there's any doubt that he's ready. I think there's the potential there that he is a bit of a wunderkind, that he's somebody who could come in and be your answer to McVay and Shanahan. So he's number 2 on my list. I think it's a bonus that he's worked very well with a rookie QB, because the Seahawks, that's coming around the corner, whether it's this year or next year. I've got a lot to say on the draft, which, trust me, that is coming around the corner. We've been sort of waylaid with all this coach stuff. I've got some big opinions coming out there on the draft. That's on the way. But, if they do draft a quarterback at some point, you're going to need somebody who can put his arm around him and coach him. Slowick's shown he can do that. So really, it goes as far as that, because if Johnson goes to Washington, Bill Belichick goes to Atlanta, Harbaugh goes to the Chargers, there is no way on earth Tennessee or Carolina is a more attractive job than the Seattle Seahawks. So go and get Bob Slowick if you can't get Ben Johnson. And that should be it. That should be it. But if for whatever reason he ends up at Tennessee, why would he do that? Their roster's a shell. Look, it'd be great for Will Levis because he needs this kind of offense. But if Slowick goes there and Johnson goes to Washington, or Slowick's somehow convinced to go to Carolina because David Tepper offers him $1 billion, dollars. The only other person I'd really be thinking about is Vrabel, just because he will be able to build a staff. He's had a lot more success without needing to lean on a superstar coordinator like Dan Quinn. Vrabel has taken a fairly mediocre Tennessee team who, yes, Derrick Henry was superb. Yes, A.J. Brown was very, very good. Tannehill is Tannehill. The offensive line's been the offensive line. The defense has been the defense. They got to the freaking AFC Championship game. They won 23 games in the next 2 years after doing that. And it fell apart because John Robinson traded away A.J. Brown, which Mike Vrabel could not have made it any more obvious that he did not agree with that decision on the TV cameras in the draft room. And then John Robinson's fired because of that FUBAR. And then the interim GM looks after the next draft. And then they appoint somebody else to look after the next draft. This is chaos. And they were still fighting and clawing and scratching in week 18 to beat the Jaguars. So if those two can't come in, Johnson and Slowick, I'll turn to Vrabel. I don't think you need any more candidates than that. Avero, seems like a really great coach. Been a defensive coordinator for 2 years, has done a decent job. Who's his offensive coordinator? Why are you appointing a guy who's done a pretty good job, 2 defensive coordinator roles? Why would you appoint him? And then have the question marks defensive coordinator. And if he gets an offensive coordinator who's any good, he's gone in a year. What do you do then? You're asking for trouble. Patrick Graham's the same. Dan Quinn, come on. Dan Quinn, the more you think about Dan Quinn, doesn't it just scream 8-9 or 9-8? He dominated in Seattle with the LOB defense, one of the greatest defenses that has ever played in the NFL, and could make a case of being maybe even the best, given what they did to Peyton Manning and the at the time, best offense ever that the NFL had ever seen in a Super Bowl, and destroyed them. He then goes to Atlanta, and with Kyle Shanahan, they make the Super Bowl. And Matt Ryan's MVP. His defense is average. And then when Shanahan goes, he's 24-29. It's no good. He had a good staff there. It didn't work. And then in Dallas, they were giving up like 25 points a game at the end of the season. They beat up bad opponents and struggle against the good ones. And how can you watch the Green Bay game? You could bring in Dan Quinn and go, okay, he's going to win us 10 games next year. What's going to happen when they get to the playoffs? All that because he's a good guy and the culture will be good. Who's the superstar offensive coordinator that's coming with him, and how is he going to stick around beyond year one? What are you going to do then? What makes this defense great? Because he can't rely on Sherman, Thomas, Cam, Pete Wagner years, Pete KJ Wright years, Bennett and Averill, Mebane, Parsons, Shanahan. It just doesn't interest me. And it's the same for people like Raheem Morris, I'm afraid. They're just, to me, they seem like good guys, but why are they going to lift the Lombardi trophy? I think you've got to try and fight fire with fire a little bit here. You've got to go with the offensive trend, which, Schneider referenced. You've got to be conscious of trends. Mike Holmgren told him to go with offense. And look, I've been thinking, what does John actually want to do? Does John just want to appoint a safe hire and just go, okay, this might be my only chance. I've waited 14 years. It might be my only chance to hire a head coach. I'm going to play it safe. I'm going to hit a nice gentle tee shot right down the fairway and then get beaten in the playoff. Is that really what he wants to do? Or is he going to go, cards on the table, let's go for it? I think he is going to want a young offensive guy who he can, let's say, listen, I'm going to control the roster. I'm going to get you your guys. I'm going to get you your players. I'm going to fix that O-line. I'm going to get you a quarterback. You cook. You make DK Metcalf a top 3 receiver. You get our tight ends rocking. You get our running backs rocking. You get this offense going. I want to see special offense. And we'll put a complementary defense together with a defensive coordinator. I am convinced that's the way he's going to go. And I don't see any reason why he can't land one of Johnson and Slowick. And I think he will go that way. Now, on Slowick, I'm about to stick the TV on and watch that Texans against the Ravens. I think the Ravens are going to hammer the Texans today. And I don't think that's going to be because of Slowick. I think the Ravens are a buzzsaw. Offense, defense, they're aggressive, they attack you, they get scoreboard pressure. I think that's going to happen today. And I don't think it's going to be a particularly good look for Slowick. But I don't think it should be, then he comes off the radar and Mike McDonald comes on it. If Mike McDonald brings Lamar with him and all of that offense that goes with Baltimore, then great. But he don't. So I'm not going to read too much into this game as much as I'm going to sit down and enjoy it. So those are my thoughts. Those are kind of the 3 that I would go for. And I do think that, like I say, we could see some movement by the end of the week, because if the Texans get eliminated this weekend and if all the other favorites win, there's only going to be Ben Johnson who can't do an in-person interview next week. So the process from Monday can shift along here. You can pick 4 candidates to interview. You are going to have to interview at least 2 candidates who can, so that you will make sure that you have abided by the Rooney Rule. So that there's going to be multiple people coming in. It's the same for all teams. But whenever you've finished those interviews, I want to see Johnson and Slowick. And if it's neither of those 2, then Vrabel is a consolation prize for me. And really, that's all it comes down to. And you know what? If it doesn't work out with Johnson and Slowick, you move on. You try somebody else. It is what it is. But I think John is going to be bold, aggressive, exciting, offensive-minded. And I think he's going to potentially appoint one of these guys. And if it is Slowick, because Johnson is going to Washington, that comment about I'm in control of the assistants and the staff now. If Bobby Slowick can't put together a great staff, John Schneider might be able to put together a great staff. No doubt he will have great contacts, and he might be able to build the team around Slowick who can help and support him. And it'll be a collaboration. They'll say, how about this guy? How about this guy? When you give this guy a call, see if you mesh, whatever. But I think that's how it could play out. That's my prediction right now. But everything's changing, and in a couple of days' time, I reserve the right to change my opinion. But that's how I feel. I wanted to chuck a video down and share a few thoughts. So what do you think about it? What's your preferred top 3 in terms of the candidates? Do you think it's true that it could be by the end of this week? Do you agree with my top 3? Are there others that you would chuck in there? Whatever you want to say, comment section, let me know. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Loads more videos on the way between now and draft time, where we'll be talking about the coaching search, we'll talk about who they hire, and we'll be talking about the draft a lot as well. So make sure you subscribe. Make sure you check out SeahawksDraftBlog.com as well. Loads of articles on there. Until next time, bye for now.